Let me ask you something. Something you may have never dared to ask yourself. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and truly recognized the person staring back at you? Not just the face, the hair, the eyes, but the person behind them, the one who feels, who dreams, who aches, the one who sometimes feels like a stranger in their own life. Maybe you felt it in the quiet moments, when the world is silent and you're left alone with your thoughts. That knowing sense that something is off, that you're not living the life you are meant to live, that you're not even sure who you really are. If you're honest, you've probably felt it. Maybe you're feeling it right now. This isn't just your story. It's the story of being human, and it's a story that's been told for thousands of years, in whispers and in screams, in philosophy and in poetry, in the silent ache behind our eyes. Today, I want to take you on a journey into the hidden war inside your mind, a war you may not even know you're fighting, but it's shaping every decision you make, every relationship you have, every dream you dare to chase or abandon. This is not a self-help video. This is not a pep talk. This is a confrontation with the parts of yourself you've tried to ignore, the parts that are quietly running your life. Are you ready? Let's start with a simple question. Who are you? Not your name, not your job, not your Instagram bio. Who are you really? Most of us answer with roles. I'm a student. I'm a parent. I'm an artist. But these are just masks, identities we put on to make sense of the world, to fit in, to survive. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." He wasn't talking about deception. He was talking about protection, about the armor we build to shield ourselves from pain, rejection, and the chaos of existence. But what happens when you forget you're wearing a mask? When the mask becomes your face? Imagine a child who loves to draw. She spends hours lost in her imagination, creating worlds no one else can see. But one day, a teacher tells her, "Art isn't practical. You should focus on math." Her parents nod in agreement. Slowly, she puts away her pencils. She learns to smile when she gets good grades, to hide her disappointment. She becomes the person everyone expects her to be. Years later, she's successful, but she feels empty. She can't remember the last time she felt truly alive. Sound familiar? We all wear masks. Some are stitched from childhood wounds. Others are handed to us by society, by culture, by the people we love. Over time, we forget where the mask ends and we begin. But deep down, a part of us remembers, and it aches. Think of the boy who was always told to man up whenever he cried. He learned to swallow his feelings, to hide his vulnerability, to become strong. But as an adult, he struggles to connect, to trust, to love. He's armored himself so well that he can't feel anything at all. The mask is supposed to protect us, but sometimes it suffocates us. Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher, told a story about prisoners chained in a cave, forced to watch shadows on the wall. They believe the shadows are reality because it's all they've ever known. What if you're living in your own cave? What if the habits, beliefs, and fears you inherited are just shadows, echoes of someone else's story? Psychologists call this the unconscious. It's the part of your mind that runs on autopilot, shaping your actions without your awareness. It's why you reach for your phone when you're anxious, why you lash out at people you love, why you chase approval even when it hurts you. Carl Jung, a student of Freud, called it the shadow self, the parts of us we deny, repress, or ignore. the anger, the envy, the fear, the longing. But here's the uncomfortable truth. What you refuse to face controls you. The more you run from your shadow, the more power it has over your life. Think of your mind as a vast, dark forest. There are paths you walk every day, well-trodden, familiar, safe. But there are also places you never go. Places where monsters lurk. Places where you might find yourself. Most people spend their lives circling the same paths, never daring to venture into the unknown. But what if the treasure you seek is hidden in the darkness? Have you ever noticed how you react when someone criticizes you? Maybe you get defensive, or maybe you shut down. Maybe you replay the conversation in your head for days, obsessing over every word. This isn't just about the criticism. It's about old wounds, memories of not being enough, of being judged, of being hurt. Your reactions are not random. They are echoes of your past playing out in the present. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German theologian who resisted the Nazis, once wrote, "The pursuit of truth and the pursuit of self are one and the same." But most of us are at war with ourselves, torn between who we are and who we pretend to be. This war is subtle. It shows up in the little lies you tell to avoid conflict, in the dreams you abandon because they seem unrealistic, in the way you shrink yourself to fit into someone else's idea of enough. Machiavelli, the infamous political philosopher, argued that people are driven by two forces, fear and love. But what he didn't say is that these forces often collide inside us. We crave acceptance, but we fear rejection. We long to be seen, but we're terrified of exposure. So we build walls. We hide behind sarcasm, perfectionism, busyness. We become experts at self-deception. But the cost is high. Every time you betray your true self, you lose a piece of your soul. I once knew a man who seemed to have it all: wealth, status, admiration. He confessed to me late one night that he felt like a fraud. He said, "I don't even know what I want anymore. I just know I'm not happy." He had spent his life climbing a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. How many of us are doing the same? A woman spends years in a relationship that looks perfect from the outside. She posts happy photos, tells her friends she's lucky, but inside she feels invisible. She's lost herself in the role of the good partner. She's afraid to leave, afraid to be alone, afraid to disappoint. So she stays. She tells herself, it's not that bad. She numbs herself with routine, with distractions, with denial. But late at night, when she can't sleep, the truth whispers, "This isn't who you are." Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most people would rather live with a comforting lie than face a painful truth. Plato called this noble lies, stories we tell ourselves to make life bearable. I'm fine. This is just how things are. I'll change tomorrow. But lies are heavy. They weigh us down, suffocate us, keep us small. Nietzsche warned, sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. But what if your illusions are the very thing keeping you from freedom? Imagine you're standing at the edge of a cliff. Below is the life you've always known, safe, predictable, but unfulfilling. Across the chasm is the life you secretly long for. But to get there, you have to leap. You have to let go of the stories that have kept you safe. Most people never jump. They cling to the edge, paralyzed by fear. But some find the courage to let go. Think of your life as a house built on shaky ground. You patch the cracks, paint the walls, rearrange the furniture, but deep down you know the foundation is unstable.
You tell yourself it's fine. You distract yourself with renovations. But the house is always trembling, always threatening to collapse. What if the only way to build something real is to tear it all down and start again? What if the first step to becoming who you truly are is radical honesty? Not just with others, but with yourself. This means admitting your fears, owning your desires, facing your failures without flinching. It means asking hard questions. What am I pretending not to know? What am I afraid to feel? What would I do if I wasn't afraid?
It means sitting in the discomfort, letting the truth burn away your illusions. Bonhoeffer believed that true freedom comes not from doing whatever you want, but from aligning your life with what is real. The truth will set you free, he wrote, but first, it will make you miserable. Are you willing to be miserable if it means being free? A man spends years chasing success, thinking it will make him happy. But no matter how much he achieves, it's never enough. One day he admits to himself, "I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it to prove my worth to people who don't even care." It's a painful realization, but it's also liberating. For the first time, he can choose a different path. Here's another uncomfortable truth. You will never be finished. There is no final version of you, no moment when you have it all figured out. The ancient Greeks called this becoming, the idea that life is a process, not a destination. You are always in flux, always changing, always becoming. But most of us cling to the myth of the finished self. We think, once I get that job, that relationship, that body, then I'll be happy, then I'll be whole. But happiness is not a place you arrive. It's a way of traveling. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Your why is not a fixed point. It's a compass, a direction, not a destination. A young woman dreams of being a writer. She imagines the day when she'll finally make it, when she'll be published, respected, admired. But every time she sits down to write, she's paralyzed by fear. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? She waits for the perfect moment, the perfect idea, the perfect version of herself, but it never comes. One day, she realizes the only way to become a writer is to write, to embrace the mess, the uncertainty, the imperfection. She starts small, a sentence, a paragraph, a page. She learns to love the process, not the outcome. One of the greatest obstacles to becoming yourself is the fear of being disliked. Alfred Adler, a contemporary of Freud, argued that all human problems are interpersonal problems. We crave approval. We fear rejection. We shapeshift to fit in. But what if the price of belonging is losing yourself? The Japanese have a concept called hon and tate. Your true feelings hon, and the face you show the world tateme. Most people live their whole lives behind tateme, never daring to reveal their han. But the people who change the world, the artists, the rebels, the visionaries, are the ones who risk being disliked, who choose authenticity over approval. Are you willing to be misunderstood if it means being true to yourself? A teenager loves poetry, but his friends think it's lame. He hides his notebooks, pretends to be someone he's not. But the poems keep coming, pouring out of him like a secret language. One day he shares a poem online. It goes viral. Strangers reach out thanking him for his honesty. He realizes that the very thing he was ashamed of is what makes him unique. He loses some friends, but he finds himself. We spend our lives trying to control things, our image, our future, our emotions.
But the more we try to control, the more anxious we become. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that the only thing we truly control is our own mind. Everything else, other people, circumstances, outcomes, is outside our grasp. But most of us live as if the opposite is true. We obsess over what others think. We try to predict the future. We cling to certainty. But life is uncertain. Control is an illusion. The only real power you have is the power to choose your response, to choose honesty over comfort, courage over fear, growth over stagnation. Imagine you're holding a handful of sand. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. But if you relax your grip, the sand stays in your palm. Control is like that. The more you cling, the more you lose. The more you let go, the more you gain. Here's a truth most people don't want to hear. Suffering is not your enemy. It's your teacher. Nietzsche believed that suffering is essential for growth. To live is to suffer, to survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. But most of us run from pain. We numb ourselves with distractions, social media, food, work, relationships. We do anything to avoid feeling. But what if your pain is trying to tell you something? What if it's a signal, a call to change, to grow, to become? The Japanese art of kintsugi repairs broken pottery with gold, making the cracks beautiful. What if your wounds are not something to hide, but something to honor? A man loses his job. He feels worthless, lost, afraid. For months, he spirals into depression. But in the darkness, he discovers something unexpected, a passion for cooking. He starts a small food blog, sharing recipes and stories. Slowly, he rebuilds his life. Not in spite of his suffering, but because of it. His pain became his teacher. His wound became his gift. We say we want freedom, but freedom is terrifying. Freedom means responsibility. It means owning your choices, your failures, your life. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist philosopher, wrote, "Man is condemned to be free." There are no excuses, no one to blame. You are the author of your story. But most people would rather be told what to do. It's easier to follow the script, to play the role, to let someone else decide. But true freedom is messy, it's uncertain, it's lonely. But it's also the only path to becoming who you truly are. A woman leaves a high-paying job to start her own business. Her friends think she's crazy. Her family worries. She's terrified, but for the first time, she feels alive. She's no longer living someone else's dream. She's writing her own story. You don't have to change your whole life overnight. Sometimes the most powerful act of rebellion is a small one. Saying no when you mean no. Admitting you don't have all the answers. Allowing yourself to rest. Speaking your truth even if your voice shakes. These small acts add up. They chip away at the mask. They make space for your true self to emerge. A man spends years pretending to like sports because his friends do. One day he admits he'd rather read. He loses some friends, but he finds new ones. People who share his interests, who accept him as he is. It's a small rebellion, but it changes everything. So here's my invitation to you. Take off the mask, step out of the cave, face your shadow. Tell the truth. It won't be easy. You will lose people. You will disappoint others. You will feel lost. But you will also find something priceless, yourself. Not the self you show the world, not the self you think you should be, but the self that has been waiting quietly, patiently for you to come home. Here's the twist. You are not alone in this struggle. Every person you admire has fought this war. Every hero, every artist, every thinker. They have all faced the darkness inside themselves. They have all felt lost, afraid, unworthy. But they chose to keep going, to keep searching, to keep becoming. And so can you. So I'll leave you with a question that has haunted philosophers for centuries, and that only you can answer. Who are you when no one is watching? Not who you pretend to be, not who you wish you were, but who you are. In the quiet, in the dark, when the mask comes off, are you willing to find out? Let's step back for a moment.
Throughout history, the question of identity has haunted humanity. In ancient Greece, the oracle at Delphi bore the inscription, "Know thyself." Socrates believed that self-knowledge was the foundation of wisdom, but he also warned that most people would rather remain ignorant because the truth is often uncomfortable. In the Middle Ages, people defined themselves by their place in the social order. Peasant, noble, priest. There was little room for individuality. Your role was your identity. The Renaissance changed everything. Suddenly, the individual mattered. Artists signed their work. Writers explored the depths of the human soul. The question shifted from, "Who am I supposed to be?" to "Who am I?" But with freedom came anxiety. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard called it the dizziness of freedom, the terror of infinite possibility. Today, we have more freedom than ever, but we're also more lost than ever. We scroll through endless feeds, comparing ourselves to curated versions of other people's lives. We chase likes, followers, validation. But the more we seek approval, the more we lose ourselves. Why do we lie to ourselves? Why do we cling to illusions even when they hurt us? Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, the discomfort we feel when our beliefs and actions don't match. To reduce the discomfort, we change our story. We rationalize, we justify. We tell ourselves, "It's not that bad. I had no choice. Everyone else is doing it." But every lie, no matter how small, creates a crack in our foundation. Over time, the cracks become chasms. The philosopher Immanuel Kant believed that honesty is a moral duty, not just to others, but to ourselves, because without honesty, there can be no trust, no growth, no real connection. Carl Jung believed that the path to wholeness requires us to face our shadow, the parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Your shadow is not your enemy. It's a part of you, a part that holds your pain, your fear, your longing. But it also holds your creativity, your passion, your power. To deny your shadow is to deny yourself. A woman struggles with anger. She tries to suppress it, to be nice, to avoid conflict, but the anger leaks out in passive-aggressive comments, in resentment, in self-sabotage. One day, she decides to face her anger. She learns to express it in healthy ways, to set boundaries, to speak her truth, to stand up for herself. Her anger becomes her ally, not her enemy. We live in a culture obsessed with perfection. Perfect bodies, perfect lives, perfect happiness. But perfection is an illusion. It's a moving target, always just out of reach. The philosopher Voltaire warned, "Perfect is the enemy of good." When you chase perfection, you miss the beauty of what is.
A musician spends years trying to master his craft. He practices for hours, chasing the perfect performance. But every time he plays, he hears only the mistakes. One day, he plays for a group of children. They don't care about perfection. They dance, they laugh, they clap. For the first time, he feels the joy of music, not as a performance, but as a gift. He realizes that imperfection is what makes us human, what makes us real. Life is not a straight line. It's a series of beginnings and endings, of losses and discoveries. The philosopher Heraclitus said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man." You are allowed to begin again, to change your mind, to let go of old dreams and chase new ones. A man spends decades in a career he hates. One day, he quits. He goes back to school, starts over. It's terrifying. He's older than his classmates. He feels out of place. But he also feels alive. He's no longer living someone else's story. He's writing his own. We're taught to hide our weaknesses, to present a polished image to the world. But vulnerability is not weakness, it's courage. Brené Brown, a researcher on shame and vulnerability, writes, "Vulnerability is the birthplace of connection and the path to the feeling of worthiness. When you allow yourself to be seen, truly seen, you invite others to do the same." A woman shares her struggles with anxiety on social media. She's afraid of being judged, but instead, she receives messages of support, of gratitude, of connection. Her vulnerability becomes her strength. Who you are is not fixed. It's not a label, a role, a story. You are a process, a becoming, a dance between shadow and light, between fear and courage, between who you were and who you are becoming. The philosopher Alan Watts said, "Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. You are not a thing, you are a verb." Most people sleepwalk through life, going through the motions, following the script, never questioning, never waking up. But you have a choice. You can wake up. You can question. You can choose. It won't be easy. It will require courage, honesty, and a willingness to be uncomfortable. But it will also set you free. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how." Meaning is not something you find, it's something you create. You create meaning by living in alignment with your values, by facing your fears, by telling the truth. In the end, the journey is not about becoming someone else. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's about reclaiming your voice, your power, your truth. So, I'll ask you again, who are you when no one is watching? Are you willing to find out? The greatest journey you will ever take is the journey within.